What was your biggest accomplishment in life?
Wow. I would say really my biggest accomplishment was becoming a father. You know, I became a father at 37. You know, so it took a while. And that's it. And just to be able to nurture a kid and instill values and morals and even showing them how to have an appreciation and a love for learning, that's an accomplishment to me.
Do you have any wisdom for me or my family?
Wow. What I could say for you is um, it's important that you keep grinding. And what I mean by that, use every day to focus on learning, not making the grade, but to focus on learning. Because when you are learning, that's when you're making the grade. And even after you leave Lanier, is to keep grinding, to go for what you want, and to follow your heart. A lot of times we tend to follow our minds, like we want to get in certain fields because we know it makes a lot of money, but our heart is not really there. So I think you should really follow your heart. What is it that you're most passionate about? And don't stop until you get it. And even let's say if it is education, people often say, "Well, you don't make, people teachers don't make a lot of money, but your gift is going to make room for you, because you could be that educator that will end up, doing things like they pay you more to go train, or you could, become the chair of a department, or you could be asked by a university to come in as an adjunct professor. So your gift, it'll make room for you, no matter what field of study you're in, as long as you're following your heart.
Did you ever join a fraternity or sorority?
No, I did not. But I will admit, uh, I was very interested at the time of pledging Alpha Phi Alpha, which, as you know, is the first fraternity, the Black and Gold. W.E. Du Bois, Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Andrew Young, all of these famous brothers were a member of that fraternity. Um, Unfortunately, by the time I decided to pledge, they were kicked from the yard. Not because of hazing or violence or anything. It's something that happened with some extravagant thing they did and they owed the university at the time. And I probably shouldn't be telling all of that, so you might want to edit that.
What middle, high school, and elementary school did you attend?
Oh, wow. That was so long ago. Um, Although the names have now changed for my the schools that I attended, um, elementary was Southside Elementary. Middle school was Francis E. Willard Middle School, and high school was Piedmont High School. And I graduated Piedmont High School in 1982 and went on to Troy University. At that time, it was Troy State University. And I went there to study journalism. Um, Although my major was broadcast journalism, I thought I would still kind of look at print, broadcast, and even public relations, even radio, just to kind of decide what it was that I really wanted to do.
When were you born?
Well, I was born March 2nd, 1964, in a small town, Piedmont, Alabama, which is in North Alabama. It's about, 30 minutes from the Georgia state line, to Freddie and Carolyn Spear. Those are my parents, who I give a lot of credit to for giving me a love for learning. Although both of them, they actually dropped out of high school. They eloped and got married. And there were six of us. So I'm like the third of six kids. And even in spite of them not achieving, a high school diploma, uh, still for us, they still instilled in us a love for reading. We had the Book of the Month Club. The books were sent in the mail every month. We raced to the mailbox to get it. My parents subscribed to both newspapers, so we often sat around as a family discussing things that are happening um, in the news, in our city, in our state. Just because they always wanted us to be aware of the world that we were about to face after leaving high school.
How do you feel about education?
Wow, that question is a little nebulous. If you could help me to narrow it, because I can go, are you being like the state of education now or just about education in general?
Education in general.
Um, a learned society, a society that learns, is a society that will thrive. And that's what we're counting on amongst young people that we teach, because you guys one day will be leaders. You'll be the ones that will make society what it is next. And education, being an educated person, that's like the linchpin that will hold everything else together. You might have heard about the term the talented tenth. There's always that 10%, especially amongst African Americans, who will be the ones to kind of lead our people. And an educated populace, those are the ones who usually end up leading our people. So education is so important because it will keep us it would keep us from repeating the past. And it's going to make you a well-rounded citizen.
What person has influenced your life the most?
Oh God, man, it's so many people. I would say my parents first of all, and also growing up. And I do believe that these men were placed in my life as role models. Starting with that's Dr. J.C. Palmore. He was like my neighbor growing up, but he was one of those. He went on off to college, and and he would always come back every summer and give back to the community. And he was actually like a drama student. He also was math too, but he would come back and spend time with the youth. So, and that's really how I overcame my shyness through his theater workshops. And we had the Palmore Players, so we would often go around doing morality plays, traveling, and that helped me to really work on how I present, how to speak properly, and it made me also want to read more because he introduced us to so many African American authors. The second person would be Freddie Perry, and he was another teacher, and that's a teacher who really taught me about the importance of grooming, and he also taught me how to tie a necktie. And again, if it wasn't for him, I grew to have a love for music through him. He was also like the director of choirs at my church, and so I was actually able to join the young adult choir at the age of 13 and started directing even like the older people because I learned based on what he did, and he was definitely a role model in the community. Last but not least is Charles Needham, and this was a white man who was um, it was a co-op program, and so we called it VICA, a Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. And he actually tried to help me to get on at a radio station because he said, Spear, you sure do like to talk a lot. And so through him, he started entering me into speech competitions. And there I grew a love from wanting to at least try and master, and I'm still working on it, but mastering the English language. And just to show that even though I was a poor little black boy with two parents that worked at the cotton mill who dropped out of high school, that I could also achieve and I could actually use what I've learned in order to move forward in life and inspire others.
Have you ever received any awards?
Yes. I mean, where do I start? I mean, high school or me just as an adult?
Either or.
Um, I've been honored to receive a lot of awards just throughout my lifetime. As I shared with you, I won a lot of speaking competitions. And in my professional, when I was in journalism, I still consider myself a journalist. Ink is in my blood. But I won several awards for journalism, several first place awards for my writing, my coverage, even acknowledged by the state for being a very objective reporter, for being fair. Um, and as an educator, in 2013, I was selected as the Montgomery Public Schools Secondary Teacher of the Year.
Did you do any activities outside of school?
Oh, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I think that is what everybody should do. Not just go to school and not just go to work. Get involved in your community and in your churches. So what I do is when I'm not teaching, I oversee the music ministry at New Home Missionary Baptist Church in Mount Meigs. And my wife works with me in that respect. Her name is Donna. She directs and teaches voice. I do voice as well, but mainly I play keys and pretty much select the songs. And also constantly attend workshops, and I join other groups. I also sing with the group Garment of Praise, and oftentimes too, whenever a recording artist comes to Montgomery and they're looking for a tenor, usually I get called on to do that. And in addition to the singing thing, I volunteer in the community by getting involved, especially in socio-political movements. And because I do believe in order to make changes, sometimes you got to work behind the scenes, and sometimes you got to get in it to win it.
Did you ever make A's and B's at one point in school?
Oh, you're funny. That's a good question, though. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not necessarily like the best student until my junior year. Because at one point I was kind of like, I was okay with C's because I knew at least that was passing. And then it took that teacher I was just telling you about, Mr. Needham. He said, are you happy just being average? You just want to be an average Joe. And I was like, I dare you even say that to me. And I appreciate that now because he saw something more in me than what I saw in myself. So I quit settling for just C's and began to focus more on learning and became active and productive in the educational process, began questioning, and didn't just wait on the teacher to give me everything. I would go and research. So I just became passionate about learning. And I have to tell you, I hated school for real, but I loved learning. And I was fortunate to come across a few educators who gave me that passion even more because they were passionate about what they were teaching, which made me even get more interested in learning.
Do you have any kids?
Yes, my wife and I, we have one child, and her name is Kaylee.